What is going on, everybody? It is so good to be back. Welcome to the most comprehensive weekly NFL player review series on the internet, my Studs and Duds series. Today we're going to be reviewing the studs and duds from NFL Week 8, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. While we do that, I'm going to be going through this week's update for my own custom Madden roster. So yeah, that's just a video game, but these are my own ratings, and it makes for a very convenient and nice way to share my perceptions of these players and how my opinions on these guys is changing. So just keep that in mind. So buckle up. We're going to go game by game here, but I do ask that you please take just a second to hit that like button down below. It really does help me out. More importantly, share this video with your friends that you think would enjoy a deep review of the NFL players from Week 8. So here we go. I couldn't narrow it down to just one star, just one dud this week. 4 players to highlight here before we get into the games. So our first star of the week is DK Metcalf. Did you guys know that he did not run a good 3-cone at the Combine? I had never heard that before. Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm getting really tired of this narrative. Yeah, he fell in the draft. He also happened to have a pretty serious neck injury that NFL teams were afraid of. But most of us actually knew that DK Metcalf was going to be a rock star, myself included. I had him as the number 1 receiver in that class. Can we enjoy DK Metcalf for what he is without bringing up his freaking 3-cone every time he catches a football? It's getting really exhausting. Anyway, that's a tangent. DK Metcalf is quickly emerging as one of the premier receivers in the NFL. Now, I'm not afraid to say it, and if you disagree, that's fine, but DK Metcalf is not a complete receiver. He does very little in the short game, and he actually happens to suffer from a lot of drops. He has 5 drops already this season. But what DK Metcalf is doing as that deep threat in the perfect fit. I can't think of a better scheme fit combination of any 2 players in the NFL than Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. Metcalf is basically playing like Randy Moss, deep balls galore, but not just that, he is contributing in the intermediate game, which is an elevation, an evolution of his game that is really nice to see. The touchdown that he had against the Niners, which is a very fast defense, catches it over the middle of the field, takes one look at his best route to the end zone, and just starts hauling. We saw the speed of him catching up to Budda Baker. This guy is absurdly fast. He does take some time to get going. That 3-cone stuff does show up, but what's amazing here is he is crafting his game around that. He is focusing on what he does well, and Russell Wilson is the perfect pairing here. DK Metcalf emerging as one of the premier receivers in the NFL. And then the other star here is a linebacker that I have definitely propped up here on this channel, but I've never quite talked about him as potentially the best linebacker in football, and that's going to be Eric Kendricks. Now, there's still going to be a debate here. Bobby Wagner's having a great season. You got Levante David in Tampa, and even Fred Warner over there in San Francisco are fantastic linebackers. I think you can make a case for any of those 4, but Eric Kendricks needs to be consistently brought into that conversation. I think Eric Kendricks is the most consistent cover linebacker in the NFL. Look no further than Eric Kendricks running up the seam stride for stride and playing coverage, match coverage on a cover 2 zone up the middle on Davante Adams, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Adams not the fastest receiver out there, but the fact that Kendricks was running stride for stride and then played the ball with perfect technique, it just goes to show you how good he is. Kendricks, to me, is the best linebacker at doing something I say quite often here, and that is, as a linebacker in zone coverage, you have to cover players, not grass. And far too many linebackers, I would say 95% of linebackers, whether they're coached to do it or not, do not understand this concept that you can't just sit there and, shuffle your feet in a zone coverage. Good quarterbacks, good receivers are going to know exactly what you're doing and manipulate you. You have to find someone to cover, and Eric Kendricks gets his head around. He flies and is aggressive, and what's really impressive is when you do that, you will be taking risks to abandon your part of the zone. But he has such a solid understanding of the route concepts coming his way and the weaknesses in his own coverage that he consistently takes the correct calculated risks. And it is a thing of beauty. This man just racks up pass deflections at the linebacker position, which to me are actually the most valuable stat that you can look at for a linebacker. Not tackles, but by the way, Kendricks, you could check me on this or not. I don't look at tackle numbers because they're that meaningless, but I believe Eric Kendricks actually leads the league in tackles, and his tackle grade is higher than it's ever been. So Eric Kendricks, you got to throw this man into the conversation for the top linebackers in the game. He's still going to be rated for me behind Levante David and Bobby Wagner, but got to give this man some love. Then we've got two duds of the week, and they're both going to be quarterbacks, one in the NFC, one in the AFC. So let's start with Carson Wentz. Coming down 2 overall this week. He started very slow, crept back up, and now again showing more of these flaws in a game that should never have really been close. Carson Wentz leads the NFL in turnover-worthy plays. He almost doubles up the next man down. It's getting really concerning, and I thought he would get back to that MVP form that we saw, but we are too far removed from that to have any confidence in that. I would say that he has not been helped by the play calling, and Doug Peterson, I do not believe, is a very good head coach. He's had injuries galore around him, and Carson Wentz still has some amazing moments, but the problem is he has not shown the ability to weed out all of these mind-numbing, turnover-worthy mistakes, and the accuracy is a concern as well. So Carson Wentz, what is he? Is he a slightly better version of Jameis Winston? That's really the way things are looking here with Carson Wentz. Now, I do still believe in him, but as of what we've seen over this season, going back to last year, there's too many problems in his game right now for me to have any confidence saying he's a top 10 quarterback, an elite quarterback, to have any confidence that he can get back to the consistent week-to-week performance of years past. He just needs to do everything better and much more sharp and mentally prepared at the quarterback position. And then we have Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar is just coming down 1 this week because I did not have him rated as a superstar elite quarterback like a certain company that makes Madden and many people who ranked him second, third best quarterback in the NFL coming into the season after coming off of a best case scenario for a run-first quarterback. Now, let me be very clear. I thought Lamar would show significant steps as a passer this year as Baltimore was forced out of the read option game plan that was so effective in 2019. And that first thing has happened. They've been forced out of the game plan, but it's been pretty ugly. Lamar is one of the most inefficient passers in the league. Now, I will say he doesn't have the best surrounding core for a traditional passing offense. They built this team, this roster, to compete with this read option run first approach, but they don't have a great pass protecting line. They don't have a complex group of receivers. So that is definitely being factored in here. And Lamar's only coming down 1, but Lamar is completely not free of blame. Man, there's so many problems here. For one, he has a good processor, but it's kind of in the same way that like Marcus Mariota had a good processor, where it's a lot of throwing short of the sticks on third down. It's a lot of quote-unquote making the right read, but not doing enough. The top quarterbacks in this game understand what they need to do to move the chains on third down, whether it's stepping up in the pocket, whether it is breaking out and scrambling, whether it is hanging in there and firing the ball over the middle. Lamar just doesn't do those things at the level you make, and you could say that's decision-making, which, you know, he made some bad picks this week, but for the most part, he takes good care of the football. It's just he's missing that certain composure and know-how as a pocket quarterback, and it's something he can develop, but it's absolutely something that has not been shown on his film at the NFL level, and that was a primary concern of me coming in. His accuracy is so-so. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite, accurate quarterback. I don't think he's going to be Russell Wilson dropping these, moon balls down the field. But that's not a main concern for me. It's really just his pocket feel and the uncomfortability he shows in the pocket. He will sometimes bail from pockets too soon and rely on his legs. And then there's plenty of times where he almost feels the pressure to hang in the pocket too long and not use his legs. It's very bizarre. He needs to continue to get that feel. But for me, that's the biggest problem with Lamar, and you can throw in the surrounding core stuff. I do think that's relevant. But yeah, Lamar just has a long way to go before I'm confident calling him even a top 10 passer of the football. We all know what he can do with his legs, and when the game script allows for him to feed off of that stuff, it's beautiful. But he's got to come down as a passer here. I think Ravens fans would agree. He was the reason that they lost to the Steelers on Sunday. And that's a problem. They have a winning big football games problem, and in all of those games, they have had difficulty throwing the football. So we're going to get into the games now, and we're actually going to start with that game we were just talking about, the Steelers-Ravens game, but we're going to start on the Steelers side of the ball here. So Big Ben is also going to come down. I think he's looked okay, but he had a couple good games in the middle there. We boosted him up, and over the last couple weeks, he has not looked good. He's been getting rid of the ball incredibly quickly. This offense very clearly does not want Big Ben to be the catalyst for the offense. They want him to be that game manager type, and he's doing okay at that, but you can tell when he tries to push the ball downfield, it does not look right. He's been better than a lot of people expected, and that's great, but he's not old Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of disagreement on that. And then we have, on the defensive side of the ball, lots of movement. This is the best defense in football, so a lot of guys coming up here. Alex Highsmith is going to come up. This was a third-round pick, I believe, out of Charlotte. A freak athlete. I think they see him as the long-term replacement to Bud Dupree, and he looks like he can be that guy. He's getting very, very limited reps, but when he's been out there, he's been a versatile piece. He's shown some ability to rush the passer. He's been getting off blocks in the run game, and even as he showed in this game, that versatility in this 3-4 scheme to drop back in coverage. He had an interception in this game that looked really nice, fluid movement skills in space. So Alex Highsmith, a high physical profile type of guy that looks like a potential future star for the Steelers defense. Then we have Cameron Sutton, a slot corner here. Most of you are familiar with Mike Hilton, but I found this interesting. Last year, they were rotating Sutton and Mike Hilton. They really liked this guy. I want to say they spent a third or fourth round pick on him coming out of the SEC. So Cam Sutton can play some ball, man. He was locked down in the slot this week. He's been very solid, rounding out a very deep secondary here for the Steelers. TJ Watt's going to come up again. 8 pressures this week against Baltimore. Continues to just be so versatile and the absolute heart of this defense. He is just incredible. And then on the interior defensive line, Isaiah Buggs, late round investment, maybe even undrafted free agent out of Alabama. Getting after the quarterback a little bit here in a rotational role, like 6'3", 295 pounds, getting off the ball. Just another interior threat for the Steelers there. And then Robert Spillane, great game this week. Picked off Lamar Jackson, kind of baited him on a zone coverage play. And then also racking up the tackles, showing that good goal line defense. This is the man that stuffed Derrick Henry in a one-on-one Oklahoma drill situation at the goal line. Now, Pittsburgh replaced this guy. They went and traded for Avery Williamson from the Jets. I don't think Williamson's going to take Vince Williams' job. I would think he's going to take Robert Spillane's job. Spillane hasn't been perfect, but I did find that trade interesting because Spillane has been kind of a leader of sorts for that defense. And then just a note there, David DeCastro continues to be pretty much average at right guard. A former superstar, just hasn't been that guy for a couple years now. Could be due to go down again. Then the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about Lamar Jackson, but we got J.K. Dobbins is going to go up. He looks incredible. Star running back out of Ohio State. Explosive, contributing in the receiving game, breaking tackles, just looks like a total stud. And then we've got some movement for the pass rush here. Jalen Ferguson looks good. This was a pick that made sense when they made it. A big-bodied edge player, fits the mold of guys like Za'Darius Smith, Pernell McPhee, that this team has really done a good job developing as that pocket-pushing, physical edge player, and he's basically doing that. So he looks good. He's defending the run well this year as well. And then Yannick Ngakoue gets traded, and he is actually going to come down. He does play in this game. He's got a chance to come back up. The guy's been bouncing around. He has not been contributing at a high level, and is a player that I've been pretty critical of as one of the more overrated players in the league. You get him for a third and a fifth round pick, and the guy just is not a high-level pass rusher right now. He has a chance to turn this thing around, but I have no shame in saying that he has not been a very good player over the last, I would say, 15 games of his career. And then just some notes here. Matt Skura really struggling at pass protection at center over the last few weeks. I'll give him a little bit of an excuse this week going against that Steelers interior. Most teams do struggle to block that unit. And then Patrick Queen was really not good in this game. Perfect quarterback rating when targeted. Had, I want to say, 5 missed tackles this week. Really bad week for Patrick Queen. I like Patrick Queen a lot, but he is not grading out well. And he really struggled against the physicality and toughness of the Steelers defense. That is Definitely a weakness for Patrick Queen. I would say the reason he fell was the ability to take on blocks and match some of the bigger athletes that he's going to see at the NFL level. He's a smaller linebacker. On to the Colts-Lions game here. Plenty of movement for the Colts. So Mo Alley-Cox continues his breakout season as that do-it-all balanced tight end. This guy is such a good blocker. He's got sure hands, a reliable target for Phillip Rivers. They have a great chemistry. So he's helping out this offense quite a bit. Phillip Rivers himself is going to go up one here. He has looked so good over the last 2 weeks. The Colts are in business if Phillip Rivers plays like this, and if the first 4 or 5 games where he showed old Phillip Rivers making some of those forced throws over the middle of the field, playing a little more panicked, if that is a thing of the past and he is comfortable now with this offensive line and this scheme, the Colts are in business, and I'm talking Super Bowl business. They're going to take on the Ravens this week. Phillip Rivers seeing a lot of blitzes this week. It's going to be a huge week for the Colts. Then Nyheim Hines is going to come up +2. He's been bipolar, as a lot of these receiving backs are, but man, is he explosive. That touchdown he had, he showed the balance in his lower body to stay in bounds, spin off the defenders. He's been so reliable in the receiving game. He's been explosive. He's even ran for some nice plays as well. So he looks like a true weapon here. Phillip Rivers has always liked to have that, whether it's Darren Sproles or Austin Eckler, he's always liked to have that contributor as a running back, catching the ball out of the backfield. No different here with Nyheim Hines. And then Darius Leonard is going to come up. Fantastic game this week. This guy is, in a lot of ways, like the LeBron James, box score stuffer supreme, whether it's sacks, tackles, TFLs, interceptions. He's just all over the field, man. He looks great this year. And then on the edge, Justin Houston. This guy's 32 years old. He's just slowing down. I think he's injured this week. But, he's just not getting after the quarterback at a high level. The Colts would love Kamoko Toure to come in here and spark this edge rush because they have it in the middle of this D-line. They're seeking a little bit with Justin Houston. And they probably knew when they acquired him that it was more of a one-year type of deal. Coming off a good year with Kansas City when they signed him, but just getting up there in age, and that's going to be reflected here by the ratings. And then just some notes here. Grover Stewart continues to stuff the run at a high level up the middle, and Tyquan Lewis, a former second-round pick, becoming a much larger factor on this team as that bigger-bodied edge player. This team has a lot of those Seattle 3 concepts in it, so they like these big-bodied Michael Bennett types of defensive ends, and that's kind of what Tyquan Lewis is doing here. And then for Detroit, pretty typical underwhelming Lions performance. Second, they garner some hype. They kind of revert to being the good old Lions. Matthew Stafford was not good in this game. Shows why I did not boost him after a good week last week. That's kind of what they do here, is they disappoint when things are going well. But Romeo Okwara continues to go up here for the pass rush here, kind of fending off his brother Julian, who they drafted this year. Okwara has been pretty stagnant in his development as a veteran here. But Romeo Okwara, 7 pressures, a sack this week, really showing up here for Detroit. So he's going to go up again this week. On to the Rams-Dolphins game. Plenty of movement here this week. Let's get into it. Rob Havenstein, Andrew Whitworth, the offensive line for the Rams, continues to play well this year. Rob Havenstein struggling in pass protection a little bit this year, but what he's doing in the run game, the Rams, one of the most efficient run games in the league. Havenstein, that big mauling Wisconsin tackle, doing that well this year for sure. Whitworth continues to just defy his age. This guy could play till he's 50 at this rate. And then the running backs are going to go up. Cam Akers looks pretty good. This is a very good scheme fit for him. I wasn't the biggest Cam Akers guy. I don't necessarily see why they needed to spend a second-round pick on him, but looking elusive in space, showing that explosiveness. Darrell Henderson, the main reason I didn't think they needed to draft Cam Akers, because I do like Darrell Henderson. He looks outstanding as well, so they've got a pair of running backs here. They can come in fresh, get to the outside, and stretch the defense just as the McVay offense likes to do. And then Jared Goff is going to come down. How could he not? My God, he was terrible in this game. He's had a pretty good season, but the last few weeks, the old Jared Goff has showed up a little bit more, where when this team does get thrown off of their script a little bit, he is not the best, improviser of sorts. He can crumble when you don't get to play in rhythm. So Jared Goff coming down. And then just a note for the offense with Van Jefferson. God, he looks so good when he gets out there. The Rams are so deep at receiver, but when he's out there, he looks good. And not enough to boost him. I love me some Van Jefferson. I think this guy's going to break out as soon as he starts getting significant reps. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Taylor Rapp looks really, really good. Broke on an in route, broke up a pass that gave the Rams a good chance to get back in this game on a third down. Darius Williams playing lockdown coverage on the outside yet again. This is one of the breakouts of the year. Darius Williams in a contract year could be due for a nice payday somewhere if a team is willing to trust the tape and ignore the fact that he's 5'9". So many of these teams are so old thinking and will not take a chance at a 5'9" corner. Credit the Rams for doing that. I don't think they're going to be able to afford Darius, though. We'll see. And then some front seven guys. Justin Holland's playing that rotational role, giving some breathers to the true pass rushers here, defending the run, dropping into coverage, doing a good job there. And same thing with Sebastian Joseph Day, continues to be a good run stuffer for the Rams this season. For the Dolphins, people are going to want some Tua talk here. There was literally nothing to take away from Tua Tagovailoa in his rookie debut. He didn't have to do anything. He was basically up 28-7 before he had to do anything that remotely resembled NFL quarterbacking. We'll learn more as we go on, but some movement on the offensive line here. The veterans do look good. Jesse Davis plugging in at left tackle with Austin Jackson, their first-round pick, out. Ted Karras, the center from New England, stepping up at center. But I think you'd rather Robert Hunt and Solomon Kinley be the ones that look good as the young guys that they invested in. Hunt, a rookie, early second-round pick. Solomon Kinley, fourth-round pick. These guys are kind of these plodding, stiff-footed linemen, and they're struggling as pass protectors in the NFL quite a bit. I'm worried about Robert Hunt at right tackle. I did not like that pick. He's not looked good over the last few weeks. I think he's more of a guard. He was at a guard on my draft board. We'll see what they end up doing with him ultimately, but I'm worried about that pick. Anyway, let's move on to the defense. Eric Rowe is going to go up. He's been outstanding the last couple of weeks. So comfortable in this defense at this point that he's played in this scheme his whole career going back to his days in New England. And then outside backer edge hybrid Andrew Van Ginkel. If you're a Belichick team, get yourself a Wisconsin linebacker. That's all I'm going to say. These guys just continue to show to be the perfect skill set in this scheme where they can do a little bit of run defense, a little bit of coverage, a little bit of pass rushing. It's exactly what Van Ginkel's doing here. Quality role player here for the Dolphins. And then Emmanuel Ogbah. I did not see this signing working out. This guy's bounced around. He's playing on multiple schemes, and teams just haven't really been able to figure him out. Well, now he's playing that sort of undersized interior, oversized edge, hybrid defensive end role here in this Brian Flores Belichick defense, and what a fit it has been. Really good athlete. He's getting after the quarterback. He's defending the run. He looks like such a great fit. Good eye by Brian Flores to identify this skill set and get the most out of him. So Emmanuel Ogbah, big boost this week, +2, 74-76. And then Bobby McCain has looked much more comfortable at free safety. Love to see that. I had been mocking them Antoine Winfield in the first round. I didn't really believe in Bobby McCain to be a legitimate high-caliber free safety. Granted, you'd still probably take Antoine Winfield because that dude is incredible, but Bobby McCain looks like a really solid free safety, converted corner, kind of coming into his own at that free safety spot. So things looking up for the defense, the offense, TBD. Now on to the Raiders-Browns game. Not a ton to take away from this game. You really only can look at the trenches in a game with such terrible weather conditions. Rain, sleet, snow, wind. It was a pretty wild game, and that favored the Raiders here. The offensive line played great. No Trent Brown in this game. No Gabe Jackson. And Denzel Good, Brandon Parker, these guys stepped up. I forgot that Brandon Parker was a third-round pick by the Raiders, a huge athlete with a lot of potential. So interesting there. They've got that tackle situation figured out, but just another guy stepping up for this Raiders offensive line. Credit the Raiders for being almost plug-and-play there with that unit under John Gruden and those guys. And then on the defensive side of the ball, not a lot to say, but Nicholas Moreau has been flying around, been a secure tackler the last few weeks, so he's going to inch up a little bit. And then for the Browns, the offensive line was really good this week. Joel Bitonio, Chris Hubbard continues to kick ass at right guard. And then Jedrick Wills, the rookie left tackle, has been outstanding. These guys have been so solid. The Browns have a case to be the best offensive line in the NFL this year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, B.J. Goodson's been a good fit for them. They've needed some of that physicality, pursuit speed, good tackling, all that good stuff. That's something they've lacked at that linebacker position in the middle, and he's been providing that. Helped keep the score down in a run-heavy game this week. Terrence Mitchell's been really solid at corner as Greedy Williams has been out for them. He's stepped up, so he's going to come up. And then Larry Ogunjobi was, a star of the first week of the season and did a great job shutting down that read option for the Baltimore Ravens. But since then, he's fallen off the face of the earth. I thought he had turned a corner. It's a guy that just hasn't shown the development and was really good in his rookie season, but has regressed since. And man, he's been bad. A lot of people like Larry Ogunjobi. It just hasn't shown other than week 1 this year. So he's going to come back down. Next up, we've got the Vikings upsetting the Packers this week. Just one player moving on the offense. Brian O'Neill continues to show that growth at right tackle. Such a well-balanced, great athlete, does everything you look for, perfect scheme fit. Love me some Brian O'Neill. And then just some notes here. Ezra Cleveland was drafted in the 2nd round, presumably to be the long-term left tackle answer for this team, but he gets to start at right guard and gave them better right guard production than they've had all season. So is that something that sticks? I don't know. I thought Ezra Cleveland was more of a lighter player, more fit to be one of those finessey, quick-footed outside tackle prospects. We'll see how that plays out. I would worry about him and Bradbury being your combination there. Both those guys very light and not all that strong to be your combination there. I could be proved wrong there. We'll see how that plays out. And then Dalvin Cook was incredible this week. He's rated as such, but if he plays like that every week, he's obviously going to come up. And then Eric Kendricks, we talked about him. Some of these guys in the front 7 now really stepping up. This has been the biggest weakness for the Vikings. They lost Anthony Barr. They lost Danielle Hunter. They trade away Yannick Ngakoue. They've needed these guys to step up. They haven't to this point in the season, but this was a surprising performance for the Vikings. These guys really bunkered down in the second half. Didn't let the Packers run the ball. We're getting after Rodgers a little bit. So Stephen and Jaleel Johnson, some veterans that have been around here that haven't been all that good, were excellent against the run this week. Eric Wilson continues to play well in that Anthony Barr spot, so he's going to come up. Ifedi Odenigbo getting after the quarterback a little bit. He's been their best edge player even when Yannick was in there. He defends the run. He's a big-bodied guy, so he's been playing well. Hercules Mataafa getting in there as that situational, undersized interior pass rusher, doing some nice things. And then Jalen Holmes, another sort of tweener type, playing some DN, playing some D tackle. He is contributing on all fronts of the game, run defense and pass rush. So some low-level movement for the Vikings, but if all these guys keep playing well like this, that's going to go a long way for the Minnesota Vikings. As their schedule lightens up, they're trying to make a late-season playoff push. If these guys play like this, I will give them a chance. And then for the Packers, lots to talk about here. It's going to include last night's Thursday night football game. So Davante Adams has responded so well. We lowered him in that Bucs game. He was coming off the injury, was not playing very sharp or physical, and I was really critical of his ability to win contested catches, and that's where you're most optimistic with Davante Adams. That has always been his biggest bugaboo. We know he can get open. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL. I would say he almost undoubtedly has the best release in the NFL. But what he probably is lacking the most, or has up until the last 2 weeks, is the ability to consistently catch the football. Drops have plagued him, but more importantly, win contested catch situations. Be that reliable third down guy where Rodgers can say, hey, I need you to outbody this guy on a comeback route. I need you to win this contested catch over the shoulder. And he's done that so well the last 2 weeks. If he can be this, the Packers can overcome that lack of a true number 2, number 3 receiver option because you can lean on some of those more 50-50 balls of sorts. So he looks outstanding. He is making a case at this point for being the best receiver in the NFL, but he has benefited from being the only good receiver on a team with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. He is getting peppered with targets in a Michael Thomas kind of way right now. Then you have Robert Tonyan, +1, 70 to a 71. Continues to step up at that tight end spot, run blocking well for a lighter tight end. And then we have Equineme St. Brown. I like this guy. I thought he would show some development here. He's done the opposite. He's just been pretty miserable when he's been out there. The inability to use that 6'5", 215-pound frame to body guys out and win contested catches, it's terrible. He had back-to-back plays that killed a drive. Tough catches for sure, but catches that you expect a good number 2 NFL receiver to make, and he led to a turnover on downs after Rodgers threw a couple dimes. This is against the Vikings. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the roller coaster season continues. You just can't trust a receiver that has brick hands like this. It's really, really unfortunate because he can get open. He can run routes. You might be asking yourself, how does a 6'4" receiver who produced that ran a 4.37 fall into the, 5th, 6th round? Well, it's when you have literal bricks for hands. This guy has a critical drop every single week. He never wins contested catches. Some of the worst hands in the NFL, but they keep playing him because he's the only guy that can get open here. He ends up getting 2 touchdowns against the Niners, but 2 for 4 on 4 targets. One was just a terrible drop on 3rd down on a slant route. So a roller coaster receiver, but not a reliable target at all. I cannot believe that this team felt that a 2nd-round pick was too much for Will Fuller when he would have just opened up this entire offense. But anyway, just a couple notes here for the offensive line. Lucas Patrick, kind of an under-the-radar, low-level Duke guard, has been starting at right guard this year. He struggled the last couple weeks. And then Billy Turner has really stepped up at tackle. I think it's giving the Packers some pause on whether or not they should be paying David Bakhtiari, because this scheme clearly does a really good job for these tackles. Rick Wagner is playing excellent at right tackle. I think they could get by, honestly, without David Bakhtiari, and they would open up a ton of cap space. I think that's something they're playing with the idea of. I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but it's getting interesting there. And then on the defense, these edge guys that totally blew up last year have just gone like the complete opposite direction, especially Preston Smith. Preston Smith's been nowhere to be found, which is a big problem for this defense. Zadarius Smith still getting after the passer. He's up there in pressures. That's not really a worry, but he has been a complete and utter liability against the run. He's used in this weird role where he plays kind of that stand-up rush middle linebacker a lot, and teams are acknowledging that Zadarius, the way he rushes, he plays very upright. He's very tall. He's 6'5". If you run at him, there's nothing he can do. He is off balance. His pass rushing skill set is unique. He leaves his feet a lot as a pass rusher, and he gets blown up against the run. So he's been a complete liability in that respect. So he's going to come down for his inability to defend the run. And then you have Rashawn Gary is coming down on the edge. He's really struggled, man. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe he really is just a bust. I believed in Rashawn Gary. Maybe it's scheme fit, but he is struggling both in run defense and getting after the passer. And then you've got Darnell Savage, another first-round pick from last year. This is looking like a total flop for, in my opinion, the worst general manager among any playoff contenders, Brian Gutekunst. This is looking like a total bust of the first round. Darnell Savage has had a terrible season. He's going to come down -2. You got Ty Summers stepping up due to injuries at linebacker. They're kind of sorting out who they want their starters to be. These guys have been decent in spurts. Ty Summers looked pretty good out there, former quarterback out of TCU, high school quarterback, played linebacker at TCU. And then Kingsley Keke, one of the few defensive players that has shown growth this year. He was a good athlete coming out of Texas A&M. He's been outstanding, and he's paired really well. And the interior of this defensive line was really good against San Francisco. So there is your Packers movement from Week 8 and 9. Moving on to the Patriots-Bills game. So for the Patriots, I do want to just mention Cam Newton was actually really good in this game. We lowered him last week after looking poor the couple weeks before that. I'm still concerned about the arm talent, the ability to push the ball downfield, but something I'm open to is boosting him if he plays like that every week. But then on the offensive line, Michael Onwenu going to come up, +1. This looks like a great find out of Michigan. I do find it interesting. I mean, he, to me, was the better prospect than I believe it was Ben Bredeson that the Ravens took. I found it interesting that Bredeson went to the Ravens. You have that Harbaugh to Harbaugh coach speak connection. I found it interesting that the Ravens went with Bredeson over Onwenu when Onwenu, to me, had better film, was a better athlete, And sure enough, he's even shown to be versatile. He's playing tackle and guard and just kicking ass. So Michael Onwenu, a great find for Bill Belichick. I find it interesting that the Ravens missed on Michael Onwenu and took Ben Bredesen instead. And then you have Jacoby Myers is going to come up. He is stepping up in the slot with Julian Edelman out. He looks pretty good. So he's going to come up. Damian Harris running the ball really hard. He looks good. He looks fast, powerful. So kind of one-dimensional player, but in that sort of LeGarrette Blount, Sony Michel type of role as the bruising back here. And then you got Joe Thuney. He's going to come down, playing on the franchise tag this year, a breakout season last year. Not quite living up to the hype of last year, but still a really good guard. And then on the defense, just one player moving here. The run defense was so bad this week, but Tashawn Bauer graded out well over the last couple of weeks. He's going to come up. Former LSU defensive end that this team picked up as he didn't make the Minnesota Vikings team. And then for the Buffalo Bills, this offensive line had their best game of the season. This was all run game for the Bills. It was really impressive week. So Ike Boettger getting the start at left guard. I don't know if there's much there. He was really bad the week before, but was incredible this week, paving lanes in the run game. That Iowa offensive lineman, they know how to run block. So he's going to come up 9 from 51 to a 60. We'll see if he earns a starting job or anything, or if he's just a kind of plug-in backup. But John Feliciano comes back this week. I think this is huge for the Bills, to be honest. John Feliciano was a breakout star last year for the Bills. Came out of nowhere. Came from Miami. Miami didn't make the team on Miami, and their offensive line is terrible. The Bills pick him up, and he has been an ass kicker up front. So he's going up once, 69 to a 70. He played center this week, which is really cool. So if he takes that center job, they have a good center there in Mitch Morse. But Feliciano seems to be the heart and soul of this offensive line. They had their best week getting him back. So something to note there. The tackles here going up. Darrell Williams continues to be such a great, really low-risk, high-reward pickup for the Bills. He's taking that right tackle spot. I imagine they're going to give him a contract extension. Someone eventually has got to pay Darrell Williams. He's been 2 out of 3 years a top tackle in this league. And then Deion Dawkins did get that contract extension. He's paying that back to the Bills. And then even Brian Winters started at right guard, had a really good game this week. He's had a rough season, but if this unit can play like this together, the Bills are in business. And then the running backs look great too. Zach Moss showing some explosiveness, that power, the contact balance beast that is Zach Moss. He is coming for that starting job, but Devin Singletary is doing the best job he can to make sure Zach Moss doesn't take that starting job. I think realistically, you've got a really nice 1-2 punch. These guys are pretty similar as that sort of low to the ground, bruising, contact balance power back. Not power back, just take everything I said and scratch out power back. Just really good zone runners in those guys. And then on the defense, just Ed Oliver is going to come up this week. Just the roller coaster Ed Oliver career continues. I want to see him consistently do this. He's got 11 pressures over the last 2 weeks since we lowered him. Every time we lower him, he plays well the next couple weeks. And when we raise him, he drops off the face of the planet. So keep it up, Ed Oliver. I had you as a blue chip prospect. You got to show it week to week to week. I want to see it. You're such a freak. Get after the quarterback more consistently. You can do it. On to the New York Jets, who actually hung in here against the Chiefs until late in this game. Much more than people expected, I think. But Greg Van Roten, good free agent signing from Carolina. He's pass protecting well. And then Falorenzo Fadukasi is going to go up for defending the run. Just some notes here. Denzel Mims looks good. He might be coming up soon. Want to see him become a more consistent part of the offense here. And then George Fant could be going up. We lowered him last week. Was good this week. Quinnen Williams has been outstanding here. He might be reaching that potential based on how he's playing right now. And then the combination of Terrell Basham and John Franklin Myers continue to be good for this front seven. So there's something brewing here for the Jets. They're kind of identifying some of their better players here. They're getting more talent on offense. Mekhi Becton was good again this week. So just some positive notes for the Jets. It's really all you can search for these days for the Jets. And then for Kansas City, Travis Kelce, man, he's going to come up. He is having potentially his best season. He looks so good. They're running their offense through him, if you ask me. He's been a much more focal point of the passing game than Tyreek Hill was, their number one last year. He's run blocking at a high level. I think he's out to prove people that it's him that's the best tight end in football. I'm still taking a healthy Kittle over Travis Kelce. But to Kelce's credit, he doesn't play with that same reckless abandon. And I love that about Kittle, but it's hard to say that that's not a reason that Kittle is banged up all the time. Kelce is available to the Chiefs, which Kittle has had a hard time doing that. So Kelce making that case for tight end 1 again. And then Mecole Hardman plus 172 to a 73. He's been outstanding the last couple weeks, becoming a more consistent part of that offense as Sammy Watkins has been out. That is going to be a seamless transition, I think, in the offseason. Sammy Watkins out for contract reasons. Mecole Hardman steps up. He looks so explosive. He's catching the ball consistently. Looks great. Nick Allegretti stepping up at left guard. This is big for this team. They saw this as a weakness. They bring in Kaleki Asemele, and then unfortunately, Asemele done for the season. Nick Allegretti was a 7th-round pick out of Illinois, steps in and has been more than serviceable at left guard, so they're very happy about that. And then for the defense, Daniel Sorensen, back-to-back really nice weeks here. I think it's just a flash in the pan. I don't think he's a premier defensive player, but going to get some respect here. And then Tershawn Wharton continues to be a really good rotational run defender here for the Chiefs and a good find for this team out of a small school. So plus 2, 67 to a 69. Next up, we have the Titans at Cincinnati Bengals. Just one player on the Titans moving here, and that's Corey Davis. They did not accept his 5th-year option. He wants that contract. He was a top 10 pick. All the athletic ability in the world, just has not had a consistent stay here in Tennessee. He looked outstanding this week. I like Corey Davis a lot. I just want to see him do it more consistently. And then a couple players that get released here. Jonathan Joseph, now on the Arizona Cardinals, going to come down. I mean, he's had a decent season, but my God, did he have an embarrassing week last week against the Bengals. Just getting targeted and lit up every single throw, it felt like. And so they let him go. Kind of savage by Mike Vrabel, as former coach in Houston, just like, yeah, I'm sorry, Jonathan, I love you, but time to get you out of here. You can't hang. We'll see what he does in Arizona. And then on the edge, Vic Beasley. How does this guy keep getting contracts? I mean, seriously, has a player ever lived more off of a 1-year random breakout season, if you can even call it that? I mean, he lucked into 15 sacks. That's what's happened, and he's made millions since. He's been a terrible player for a long time. Tennessee gave him like $12 million. Luckily for them, they kind of knew that was not a good contract, and they signed Jadeveon Clowney, who is overrated in his own right, but a much better player than Vic Beasley. So I don't know. Vic Beasley probably going to get an opportunity somewhere, but man, this guy has been overrated for years, and Tennessee releases him this week. Then for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow going to come up. I made the bold proclamation that he was a top 10 quarterback after about 4 Joe Burrow starts, and he continues to make me look good for that. He is a quarterback that just simply put does not look like a rookie at all. He has all the answers to the test. He moves so well in the pocket. Credit him. The Bengals asked him to get rid of the ball quicker. Now, I wish the Bengals gave him an offensive line so they didn't have to ask that of Joe Burrow. But man, he even did that. He's just a team player. He will do whatever it takes to win. Outstanding performance this week. Joe Burrow. Can the Bengals become man, they're too far in the standings to be a playoff team, but nobody wants to play the Bengals right now with the way Joe Burrow is throwing the football. And then Auden Tate going to come up. Impressive week this week. Such reliable hands. He even looks faster than that. What did he run? Like a 4.8 coming out of Florida State? He's been much better than I expected. Auden Tate. T. Higgins going to come up as well. My God, he looks good. T. Higgins in any other draft class, no-brainer first-round pick. Just kind of got swept under the radar because he didn't do the workouts because they played so late in the season. He was exhausted with that Clemson national championship. He doesn't run that 40 time until late. He just looks incredible out there. So T. Higgins is going to come up plus 2, 75 to a 77. They are going to be so comfortable. They are not going to have any doubt about letting A.J. Green just walk in free agency because T. Higgins looks like A.J. Green in his prime this week. And then on the offensive line, Alex Redmond going to come up. They picked him back up. He has been awful in pass protection, but he is grading out very well as a run blocker. Same thing for Fred Jackson here. He gets the start at tackle. He's going to come up 5. These guys aren't the answer, but they played all right this week. And then Jesse Bates. I came so close to boosting him again. He had another good pick this week. he is looking like the best free safety in football, man. I didn't boost him because I've been raising him like every week. I love Jesse Bates. I feel like I might be a little bit emotionally stimulated to keep boosting him, but man, he has just been so incredible this year. I've been yelling and shouting his name from the rooftops for years. It's good to finally see him producing at that free safety position. So good for Jesse Bates, man. The Bengals, give this guy a contract. He is your best defensive player by a country mile. Then on to the Chargers-Broncos game. The Chargers more or less looked the same, but one thing of note, and is going to be reflected in the roster this week, Hunter Henry going to come down. I don't know if the injuries are just stacking up or if they're simply just don't want to use him in the passing game right now. But he just hasn't been that great tight end that he once was. He hasn't been for a while now. He's dealt with injuries, doesn't seem to have that same explosiveness and ability to separate. But again, maybe that's just he's not being focused in this offense anymore. But he's going to come down 85 to an 83. He is set for free agency. I think the Chargers are going to let him go. Maybe he can get rejuvenated with a system that wants to use his skill set much more. And then Justin Jones is going to come up. He's been a good run stuffer in the middle of this defense. A couple of notes here. Forrest Lamp has been struggling for the Chargers, will be coming down if he continues to struggle. And then Jerry Tillery had a really big game this week. If you remember the first couple weeks of the season, he popped. They were using him a lot at edge, and he looked great, and then that just kind of stopped. Well, this week, 7 pressures. Really good week for Jerry Tillery. Good to see the former first-round pick reestablish his momentum, but you got to see more of that consistency from him. Then the Denver Broncos. Drew Lock going to come up 1. Really wasn't great in this game, but did lead the comeback, made some nice throws, most notably hitting those inside crossing routes in the intermediate game. Something that's been his bread and butter in the passing game. So if he can build off of that and then kind of develop the game after having more of a crutch there, that's a very efficient place to throw the football. So Deshaun Hamilton's going to come up here. He's been hitting a lot of different guys on those crossers, which is a big part of the Pat Shurmur offense. So some momentum here for Drew Lock. He looked a lot better this week than he did the week before, that's for sure. He's going to come up 1, far from a perfect game, however. So Deshaun Hamilton, we said he's coming up. Lloyd Cushenberry, been much better the last couple weeks. I've been critical of him, but he's been better, so he's going to come up 63 to a 64. Not the best interior defensive line to deal with this week, so we'll see if that was just a coincidence of him playing well or not. And then some movement for these corners. Bryce Callahan continues to look like Chris Harris as that hybrid slot corner, can play some outside. Man, he is outstanding. What a signing this was. A delayed benefit from the signing because he did not play last year. But man, is he a weapon for this defense. And then AJ Bouye is going to come down. I mean, he was not good last year for Jacksonville. You could have said, all right, just kind of a deflating season, not trying so hard. But he's getting up there in age, was never a great athlete to begin with. Denver gets him here for, what was it, a 5th-round pick? Clearly not valued very highly by the league, and he is not playing at a high level at all. He hasn't been terrible, but he's been able to be had this year. He looks like a kind of an average starter at this point for AJ Bouye. Now on to the Saints-Bears game. Marcus Davenport looks like the player that this team wanted to see when they traded an extra first-round pick to move up and take him several years ago. You need him to pan out for that trade to look good, and he's panning out. He's been so good since coming back from injury. Was good last year. That pairing of him and Cameron Jordan, and now that they have that going, this defense playing much better this week. It was just the Bears, but that is something to build off of. So keep an eye on the Saints defense, maybe to have a second half rebirth here. But they're not getting a lot of help from the coverage unit here. So Demario Davis, let me just read you some stats here. So he has 1 pass breakup this year. Fine, but he had 9 last year. Was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate at times last year. So whether teams are just avoiding him or not, he's not grading out nearly as well in coverage. He is getting up there in age. But also on top of that, he had 6 missed tackles all of last season. He already has 6 missed tackles. So some problems here for Demario Davis. He's not popping on film the same way he did last year. So he's going to come down 86 to an 84. This team gave him a contract extension. Somehow this team continues to find cap space. But if he is this guy and they got to pay him that contract, that's an L for the Saints because he has been just a non-factor for the Saints this year. And then in the slot, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I really like this guy. I don't love how he's being used here. I love Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a zone, cover 3, slot corner, just what he did in Florida. He's really instinctive, jumping routes, baiting guys, a physical player. But when he's a guy that's getting one-on-one matchups and having to run man coverage and being used really like a true slot corner, that's a tough matchup for him. He's kind of this hybrid positionless defensive back, which I think the Saints are struggling in a lot of ways to use him because Malcolm Jenkins is playing probably the role that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson should be playing. So I do like Chauncey. I love that he talks all this trash too. I'm excited to see what he says to Antonio Brown this week in his return. But yeah, he's struggling in the high profile slot corner position that they're asking him to play. I don't know if that's the best fit for Chauncey. And then for the Chicago Bears, David Montgomery's been incredible, man. He had a run. I wish I had the down and distance in front of me. I want to say it was 3rd and 9. I think it was 3rd and 9 and they were playing a conservative. It might have been 2nd and long, but he was stuffed in the backfield with nowhere to go. He kicks it outside, shows the ability to get the edge, puts on a stiff arm. He is such a tough man to bring down. He looks like Iowa State David Montgomery, which is big for the Bears. They need someone that can create something out of nothing because, frankly, this offense has nothing other than David Montgomery. He's been great, a rare example of a running back making a true difference for this offense. If they didn't have him, I don't see how this team would consistently move the football at all. Take consistency out of that because they don't move the ball consistently. But Darnell Mooney, again, I boosted him last week after virtually no production because you put on the All-22, this guy just gets open. He catches the football in traffic. He blocks his ass off. I am in love with this player, and it's so sad that he has to play with a combination of Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky. This guy's so good. He fell because of a super deep receiving class. Say what you want about Ryan Pace, but he's a good eye for receivers. I think the Bears have the most underrated, underutilized group of receivers in the NFL, and Darnell Mooney is just adding on to that. So he's going to come up here for the 2nd week in a row, as is Roquan Smith, who is really reaching that potential. The coverage ability is just showing. I talked about on Twitter about how Roquan was going to be an interesting matchup on Alvin Kamara, and Kamara had a huge play when they dropped Khalil Mack into that zone, and they hit Kamara on Khalil Mack, which is a terrible matchup. But, I mean, seriously, Roquan was outstanding in this game. The Saints offense put so much pressure on these linebackers to run sideline to sideline, to play discipline, to tackle well, and he lived up to the test. I'm really impressed by what Roquan has shown over the last month of the season. Reaching that blue chip potential from that class looks outstanding. And then Robert Quinn, where are you at, dude? He's been pretty much nowhere to be found the last few weeks. Not lowering him yet, but they gave him a lot of money to get after the quarterback, and he's not doing it right now. Granted, he had to deal with Teron Armstead this week, but, you know, you're getting paid a lot of money. You got to get after the quarterback. Next up, we have the Niners-Seahawks game. So Jimmy is going to miss the rest of the season, but was not good in this game. We can all kind of feel that this is kind of flaming out with Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. I'm really intrigued to see what they do. His contract is expendable, but it is team-friendly. They're going to have to feel like they can get an actual upgrade to Jimmy before they do anything. I don't know if they're going to be in position to do that or not, but not feeling like this franchise long-term answer at quarterback for Jimmy. So he's going to come down here. And then the receiver group here, Brandon Ayuk, going to come up, was excellent in that Seattle game, the focal point of the offense without Debo in there, just being used exactly like Debo Samuel. I said it on draft night. I was not high on Brandon Ayuk, and I think if he ended up somewhere else, I feel confident that he might not have worked out. But here, no brainer, dude. Scheme up touches, get him the ball in the short to intermediate game, crossing routes, quick outs, bubble screens, jet sweeps, the Kyle Shanahan misdirection. This guy is so good with the ball in his hands. That much was always clear at Arizona State, and they are making the most out of that from Brandon Ayuk. And then you've got Richie James. He went up against the Packers, was like the only receiver they could use, really just for his ball carrying ability. Most of his production came on like pop passes and, you know, really short gimmick stuff, but he looks serviceable as a weapon. And then Ross Dwelly, he's been a factor here for the Niners. He's blocked well. He's been catching balls. Looks like a decent backup tight end. He's going to come up. And then the first-round pick, Javon Kinlaw, head scratching how poor he's been. Now, certainly you can look at this defensive line and say, in a world where he could be the lone single team guy for this defense, because you got to worry about Bosa, you got to double him, you got to worry about D Ford. Arik Armstead's been injured and not playing well. In a world where Javon Kinlaw gets single teamed all the time, I think he'd be having a much better season. But offensive line's been able to focus on him much more. But at the same time, he's not winning at all. So he's going to come down. Just not a great start to Javon Kinlaw's career. I think he'll be fine, but on to Seattle here. We talked about DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson continues to creep up. He wants to become the best quarterback in the NFL. He was pushing so hard for it, but Patrick Mahomes is playing great too. And then you have Ryan Neal, not very good in coverage, but he's been playing safety there with Jamal Adams out, been tackling, locking down. Not locking down, but been playing, I guess, so he's going to go up. Not a long-term answer by any stretch of the imagination. Let's move on. Dallas at Philadelphia. God, this game was hard to get through, but we did it. Trayvon Diggs is going to go up. Thought that was an excellent value in the second round. Kind of one of these lengthy press corners. Really good ball skills in this game. He's been good the last couple of weeks. So stabilizing some things in the secondary for this Cowboys defense that's been so bad. But the front seven still worrisome. Aldon Smith has almost disappeared here. Such a great start coming back, the comeback story here, but has just not been that guy for the last month of the season. He's going to come back down to earth a little bit here, 79 to a 77. Jalen Smith, I don't know what's going on here. I am a huge Jalen Smith fan, but he just has not been a factor. In fact, he's been a liability in the middle of the field for this defense in coverage. He's not been the same speedy pursuit, sideline to sideline guy in run defense. Just coming down, man. He just has not had a good year, simply put. Tyron Crawford continues to show his age, not getting after the quarterback, not defending the run, so he's going to come down. And then for Philadelphia here, Travis Fulgham continues his climb. That much is obvious. He's the only receiver that they seem to trust here. It's kind of funny. If this team spent so much time trying to get faster on the offense, they try to get Deshaun back. They draft Jalen Reagor, who did play in this game, by the way. John Hightower. They bring in Marquise Goodwin. And it turns out they end up picking up this slow, scrappy division. Well, I guess Old Dominion's D1 now, but Old Dominion, slow, big-bodied, physical receiver, and he ends up being their best weapon. I mean, he's basically like Alshon Jeffrey here. He's playing really well. We talked about Carson Wentz. For the defense, the Eagles' defense has been much better lately. So Jalen Mills has kind of been bouncing around. He started at safety, had to go back to corner because of injuries. Now he's back at safety and looks pretty good there. So he's going to come up. And then TJ Edwards, +1, 66 to a 67. Missed some games there for the last month of the season, but he was back, was outstanding against the run this week. He was on my top 10 breakouts list for 2020, probably the biggest underdog on that list. But good to see him come out there. They go right back to him after some of these other linebackers have been playing well. And he was clearly their best linebacker this week. The other guys did not have a good week. And then just a low-level guy here, Michael Jacquet. I know nothing about this player, but graded well, got 35 snaps this week. And that's really all I have to say about that. Keep an eye on him, I guess. And our final game here, the Bucks at Giants. So the Bucks, Jaden Mickens steps up with all these receiver injuries, was a good part of that offense this week. Tristan Wirfs continues to dominate. What a steal he was in the middle of the first round. This guy looks like he probably should have been a top 6 pick. Just happened to fall in a really good tackle class. All these rookies look good. Andrew Thomas, though, on the other side, has been probably the most hit or miss guy after a good week 1. By the way, I did like Andrew Thomas, so I will at least point that out. I'm not afraid to admit when I was wrong, so to speak. We'll see, a lot of football left for these guys' careers. Then Ryan Jensen, just not having the best season as a pass protector. He's paving ways as a run blocker. Probably was just rated a little bit too high after garnering a lot of momentum at the end of last season. But yeah, he's struggling in pass protection, giving up some pressures, but he is playing well as a run blocker. He's fine. He's a high quality starting caliber center, just maybe not quite as good as originally thought coming into the year. And then William Golston having a career rejuvenation with all this talent around him here. He's always been a solid run defender as that sort of 4 tech on the end spot. But with all of these other guys stepping up as pass rushers, he's having one of his best years as a rusher, and that is huge for this Bucs defense because it's a good pass rush. If you have a fourth or a fifth guy here in William Golston that you got to account for, that's just such an underrated aspect of having an elite defense, is having a fourth, fifth guy as a pass rusher that is going to get single teamed all the time. If he's winning those at a high clip, that's dangerous, man. So good for William Golston for a late career resurgence here as a pass rusher. And then for the Giants, Wayne Gallman's going to come up. He's playing. That's really all I have to say. I don't think he's a good running back. He's not explosive, but he at least looks like a serviceable backup. But they've had to lean on him because everyone else has been so bad. Leonard Williams going to come up. He's been playing really well. He wants to get paid, clearly. Like, he's playing so tough against the run. He's doing decent as a pass rusher. He's been a beast for this front seven. So he's playing on the franchise tag. He's a former 6th overall pick, a really athletic dude, really good interior guy, but kind of one of these guys where you don't know how much he's truly worth because he's not one of these, Cam Hayward, Chris Jones, Kenny Clark as a pass rusher. So if he's just a really good run defender and a solid pass rusher, what is he truly worth? That's a tough question to answer. And then Isaac Yiadom, athletic, lengthy corner this team picked up as Denver surprisingly released him. Had a good pass breakup this week. He's been okay starting at corner out there. It could be something, could not be something, but he's going to come up. And then just some notes here. Matt Peart. What is going on here? Get him out there, dude. Like, what's his name at right tackle? The former Cowboys guy that they signed. Is Jason Garrett just got some hard on for this? Cam Fleming? Is that who it is? Yeah, Cam Fleming played 51 snaps. Matt Peart gets 24 snaps at right tackle. Was so much better. I was a big Matt Peart guy in the draft. Big Matt Peart guy. Had him as a first to early second round prospect. They get him way later. Lengthy, athletic tackle. They need pass protection there. Play Matt Peart. Giants, what are you doing? Carter Coughlin, too, another guy I really liked in the draft. Thought this was a total steal. Perfect scheme fit coming in here. Giants kind of running that hybrid 3-4 Belichick defense, replicating the Brian Flores model here. He comes in, gets a big sack this week. I love Carter Coughlin. Great year for Golden Gophers. Carter Coughlin, Antoine Winfield, Johnson on the other side at receiver for the Bucs. But Coughlin, an interesting player. Undersized, never going to be a high-end pass rusher, but an interesting piece because he's got a lot of bend and explosiveness off the edge. He can drop into coverage. A guy that some people thought maybe should convert to off-ball linebacker because he is undersized. I don't think so. I think he's got a perfect fit here in the hybrid 3-4 defense. So there's studs and duds this week. It was a great episode. I appreciate you all for watching. Excited for another week of football ahead. Please, please, please hit that like button. Share the video. Really helps me out. If you enjoy the series, that is all I ask of you. But cheers, everyone. We'll see you for the next one. Peace out.